gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Potential Paradigms, where we have conversations on emerging paradigms in our now troubled civilization. Today, the topic of our conversation is a psychedelic medicine, or should I say an amphibious medicine known as 5-MeO DMT. I called it amphibious medicine because it's actually produced in the glands of the Bufo Toad, also known as the Sonoran Desert toad or the Colorado River toad. 5-MeO DMT, like its close relative DMT, has been known as an entheogen in South America for a long time. And for those of us who do not know, an entheogen is a sacrament or a substance that can induce a spiritual state. So before we begin, let me put in an important disclaimer. The conversation that follows is only for entertainment and educational purposes. This is not medical advice, neither is it a recommendation to use psychedelics. Psychedelics are illegal in most countries, and even possession can carry severe penalties. It also has physical and psychological risks. It can exacerbate emotional problems, and in rare cases, even fatalities have been known to occur. So now, with that important disclaimer, back to the conversation. DMT, as you might know, has been coined as the spirit molecule by Dr. Rick Strassman. 5-MeO DMT is considered an intense cousin of DMT. It is considered intense because it can quickly catapult one into an intense spiritual state of unity consciousness, non-duality, or what I like to call as God consciousness. Because it is intense, sometimes it is referred to as the Everest of Psychedelics. And just like only very few people climb Mount Everest, a certain type of personality is attracted to using 5-MeO DMT as a sacrament. Recently, a lot of DMT sharings have been in the media, such as by podcaster Joe Rogan, motivational coach Tony Robbins, and former athlete Mike Tyson. I will put some of these sharings in the show notes below if you'd like to check them out. In my own case, I've had meditative experiences, and as a psychonaut, someone who explores the inner dimensions, I'm always curious to hear from fellow explorers of what they have learned, particularly when the use of entheogens is combined with the grounded spiritual practice and meditation. Then I believe that it can be very rich and can really be a place where the map meets the territory. Even if you were to never use an entheogen, such sharings can bring tremendous insights into our journeys as human beings in this dimension. So today, my guest is my friend, Mihai Algiu-A, who is an associate therapist, an intense spiritual seeker, and a psychonaut. What follows are two friends having a candid conversation and exploration, and I hope that you will enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you like this video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're hearing this podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and elsewhere, please leave us a review. So thank you, and now let's turn to the conversation. Today, I have the pleasure of having a good friend of mine, Mihai Algiu-A, who is a somatic psychotherapist associate, an adventurer, a psychonaut. In a previous episode, Mihai and I had discussed on the potentials of psychedelics in trauma healing, spiritual development, integration, and various lessons. So today, we're going to dive into the adventures of Mihai with 5-MeO DMT. Welcome, Mihai. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kenan. Thank you. Always nice to talk to you, go deep.
So yeah, Mihai, we could, why don't you take us to the beginning, with your experience with 5-MeO DMT?
Yeah. Well, I guess, first of all, I'd like to make a disclaimer that I'm speaking now as a seeker of truth, as a spiritual adventurer, and on a spiritual path. Not so much. I don't want what I'm going to say now to be taken as the words of a therapist. Yeah. So I'm putting the therapist hat aside or in the back a little bit. All right. So in the context of having been exposed to this medicine-assisted psychotherapy, I was studying this Hakomi, awareness-based somatic psychotherapy, and there, unbeknownst to me, many people were actually sent to study that modality from some underground medicine school using various psychedelic substances. And so there I got exposed to being as a client myself, and I was always, although somehow unpleasant, each journey with MDMA or mushroom or other things, although it was not for the faint of heart and was always bring up unresolved or painful things from the past, somehow was always good. And I felt trusted, and I was like, all right. So without knowing much about 5-MeO, just a friend of mine that I trusted very much told me very little, that she benefited a lot. And she told me some things that it didn't quite make sense to me, like dissolution and like energy, like exploding. And she seemed to be very encouraging and highly recommending me. So that stayed with me. Anyway, and on my path, somebody came along my path and then offered this to me, and I trusted the person. I felt she's solid and she had experience with it and she had her own inner work, which is also another disclaimer. If anybody, really recommend, if you are engaging in such things, to any psychedelic journeys intentionally, but especially 5-MeO, to work with someone that you trust, and not just blind trust, but you know that they are integrous, they are stable, they have done a lot of their inner work. The red flags to look for is that if the person is trying to convince you to do it, that's not good. So what I liked about this person, she doesn't try to convince, because she knows this is like as this called, I didn't coin this phrase, the Everest of Psychedelics, where you are going to be brought to absolute no control. It will be the least control we ever had, ever, in terms of bodily functioning, in terms of psychic processes, in terms of emotional releases. And so this point of no control also comes right away. So that's what's a little, it's can be shocking and jarring, and I didn't expect that. Usually there's a time of delay from ingesting or drinking or smoking the medicine. There is a little delay of meditating, and then feeling some subtle stirrings, or something is happening gradually. With the 5, it's just from 0 to 100. It's almost like you are dropped into a 100 miles per hour kind of Lamborghini right away. And so anyway, my experience was, so what I can say is that I went first time like this, kind of open and no expectation and no fear, which was actually very good. And then after that, I have repeated the journey with the same person 5 other times, but each time having tremendous fear going in, because I knew what happened. So I've tried it myself a few times, 5, 6 times. And actually in each journey, there's a window of an hour or an hour and a half where the facilitator can offer you to partake multiple times. Yeah. So it was actually multiple times each time. And so this was my experience, my personal experience with it. And at the same time, I was lucky to witness. I was part of small groups, or 3 people, 2 people, where I was just there witnessing what was happening to other people that I knew. So that's my experience. I'm talking from this. My experience in witnessing maybe like 15, 20 people going through it, and also talking to them afterwards. And I can see that there is some commonality. There is some commonality of everybody's experience. At the same time, there is some difference, slight differences. So what happened for me, and the commonality that happens for other people, is that it seems like there are like minimum 2, if not 3 phases of the experience. So for me, so the idea is that you are also what I liked about this person is that she had a special room for that, which was like with gentle music and incense and all of this mystical, esoteric, contemplative stuff. At the same time, what was shocking is that there were lots of pillows everywhere, and the windows were covered, and they were soundproof. And I asked her about that, and she told me, well, many people actually may end up shouting and screaming at the top of their lungs a lot. So it just many people, their body is doing various things that it's good to allow. It's good to allow, but in order to keep the person safe, rolling or thrashing through the walls or doing things like that, it can happen. So and there was like a mattress, which was called the launching pad. And also what I appreciate about this thing, and initially I thought, come on, let's cut the fluff, let's do it. But there was a very serious ritual, very invoking spirits and guides and intention and mindfulness before, and very serious ritual, which I was a little bit like, come on, let's go. But later I could see that you need that. Somehow the experience is so much out of the usual mind and the usual everything known, that somehow one needs to have some bookmark before and after. Anyway, getting straight into it, as I'm sitting up on this launching pad, the person brings this a special type of device that, and where this, so this is from the Toad, from the Toad. However, this person that I was working with, she didn't want that toads to be harmed or used or manipulated for these purposes. And then there was an actual chemical compound that was exactly the same as the actual toad. And in her words, that's actually more stable, because the toad, I know, maybe like a sick toad or maybe like a bad mood toad, might be toxins, I don't know. Anyway, so this person looks at me in the eye and says, with perfect love and perfect care or something like that, I offer you the lamp of light. Farewell, my brother. I was supposed to take a few deep breaths and then just inhale, like from the, the pot bong, look like a bong, let's say. And just to inhale this, and then he will tell me to hold it as long as I can. So I inhale, hold as long as I can, and then after like 2 seconds, somehow, so my body went down, and the first phase came for me. The first phase, and what I must say is that each time I've done it, the same thing happened, like kind of the same phases happen. The first phase was like, first of all, I'm not aware of the room anymore, nothing, of the room, of the music, of the person, of my body. Somehow, as if I was thrown like a pebble into some kind of turbine of torture, of anguish and intense energy. And from the inside, it was like as if I was ripped apart. And like something was happening, very intense, very visceral, no thoughts. It's like as if, let's say, I was in some kind of turbine room where I was hanging on something, and then the turbine was like pushing, like really to blast me away. And so also this session was recorded audio, and then I asked the person also what was happening with my body. So in this phase, my body was like thrashing around the room and rolling and making, like, when I listened afterwards, I was shocked. It was like my body was shouting, like the most terrifying shouting that I've ever done or seen in my life. Was like, this was happening. I wasn't aware that I was shouting, but I could see that in the inside there was this, it's thrown in some terrible, energetic, torturous anguish and pain body. I don't know, I'm putting words, it took me a long time to put words. And so this kept happening for some time, and it was even getting stronger and stronger. It was relentless. And at the same time, there's no thoughts, no feelings. It was just like this extreme washing machine cycle. And at the same time, it's almost like it was unbearable. And I was like, there's nothing I could do. And then also, as this continued, there was some sense of like a sense that there's something that is holding on, or the more this ramped up, it became clear that there are these two forces of this thing blasting me, and then there was something else, some kind of gut-like resistance. I would say there'll be some resistance. I mean, it took me a long time to put words to this. some resistance, almost like you imagine that there's the hand with the death grip on the railing, and then all this thing was blasting, and then so there's the blasting and the gripping on the railing, and these two forces were playing like this a lot. And then at some point there was this sense like, man, I mean, I didn't have thoughts, but there was this, that this will not stop until I it's just the, anyway, these forces were happening, and then it's almost like the turbine was trying to vanquish the gripping. And at the same time, I had no choice, like, oh man, let go, Mihai, it's safe to surrender. This is no space for this kind of stuff. There was this somehow deeply seated, deeply, whatever this is, in some teachings, they call it the sense of separation, the sense of resistance to life. I remember Adi Ashanti was talking about this resistance to life, can be mental, can be emotional, but other teachers, they talk about this gut level and holding on and like grasping. So this continued for some time, and then my body was rolling and shouting, and then also sometimes kind of vomiting. I wasn't aware of that, but I could see that the facilitator was actually, later she told me, and I witnessed in other things, that the facilitator wants to allow this to happen. However, it wants to keep the person safe. So at some point, it was this thing that if I could just, there was no thought, but if I could just, this will stop. If we just stop, the tension was because of this holding on. So then if I could just, but I couldn't do it. And then somehow I felt like as if I was a squirrel in a mouth, in the jaw of a lion or something that was doing like, and anyway, at some point there was this sense that I could just not contract, like you contract, and then you are suffering, contracting. So the only thing you need to do is to stop. But the contracting was so strong. And I don't know where it wasn't in some part of my body, it was some kind of consciousness contraction, bodily, gut. And there was this sense that, man, like, of course I didn't have thought, just let go. But it felt like as if I were to do that, it felt like I'm going to poop my pants. I mean, it really was the same thing, like you're holding on to not poop your pants, when you're a kid. And somehow there was the ultimate shame, ultimate thing to stop holding on. But somehow, although I didn't do it intentionally, what happened is that this accentuated this whirlwind, and then that holding on couldn't resist anymore. And then it was this feeling of like, as if I have pooped, basically. And then and then what happened is that somehow when that happened, that which I could see that later they have a name for that, it's called total release. And then, it doesn't make sense, this word total release, unless you experience that. So that happened. And then somehow there was awareness. Of course, there was awareness of this torture. There was awareness of these things. There was awareness, And then there was awareness of this, that the pooping. And, I really thought that I pooped my pants. And actually, she told me that sometimes people poop their pants. So you may want to bring some spare underwear, you know what I mean? So when that happened, then all that stopped. And then I was aware of my body breathing heavily, like, and I could see there was this awareness, was observing this thing. Also, I must say that I could see later, and I could hear it on the tape, that I was doing some special breathing. I didn't have any plan, but my body was doing a special breathing, which seemed like some yogic something. I don't know. I'm not into yogic special breathing. And then sooner or later, the body kind of became calm. And all of that residual of the thing get calm. Anyway, the second phase is that as the body calmed down, there was this sense of the most peaceful, calm state I've ever experienced ever in my life, where there were no thoughts at all. And it was no images, no aliens, no God. There was no content, no objects. there was this overwhelming sense of also a simple, very simple somehow, the sense of like, it took me months to put words into it, but afterwards I will go back to these teachings that we are into, this non-duality, Robert Adams, Ramana Maharishi, Francis Lucille. I could see later that was what they call the desireless absolute peace, the peace of the background. And so that was there for some time. It was shockingly, as it was. And they're not, I felt more like an insight. Like I was still not aware of the room and everything, but there was the insight that all is well and unfolding as it should, as Robert Adams say. I mean, this came to me, all is well and always is well and unfolding as it should, everywhere, for everybody, all the time, in spite of the fact that there are bombs and people are raped and it's terrible things are happening. There was this feeling that all of that was an illusory dream suffering. This was some insight. Then I was marinating in that space for more, and there was this like wow, and the fact that there was a sense that it's true and it's real, and that is the truth somehow. That was the truth, and that is who I am. I guess what happens is that the medicine, even they say that it goes to bypasses the blood-brain barrier and goes straight to the part of the brain that were responsible for the sense of me, sense of a personal I, me, Mihai, and that floods it, and then this goes offline. So what happens is that it's what remains when the sense of me is gone, and all of the anguish and the torture and the thoughts and the feelings and the contradictions, remains our true nature, which, I experienced that before, it's not the first time I experienced that, and let's say I could teach about that and help people come to that, but there was like a whole new level of no static at all. Then I had another thought came like, well, he could see that I don't want anything. That was shocking. That was shocking, the fact that nothing is missing. Nothing is missing, and I don't want anything. And then I had a thought, like the thought came and said, well, oh yeah. And then I remember, I don't remember that, but apparently I stood up, I went to the lady, I looked at her in the face, I laughed. I started laughing, this is the classic kind of Zen laughter. I laughed and I looked at her in the face and I said, I get it. And I was laughing, and she told me later. And then I think I went back down wherever I was and still not aware of the room. And then this thought came like, well, do you want, all my life I was seeking either enlightenment or like ultimate relationship. These are two drives, like women and enlightenment, And then it came this thought like, well, you don't want enlightenment? Do you want enlightenment? And there was this like, it's like, doesn't make any sense to want enlightenment. And then also, how about women, relationship, love? And there was this like absolute bizarreness, and that I haven't experienced it. Okay, so, oh yeah, and then it came another thought like, well, like it's almost like the whole paradigm that I was living my life now was like shattered. And like, so then what do I do then if I don't want enlightenment and I don't want women and love and relationship? And there was this like, what do I do? What there's a mind, I guess. And then he was like, just live your life, bro. Just live, do what you want. It was so simple. Our Francis talks about just follow your deepest enthusiasm and all that. Anyway, then this phase transitioned, and I became aware of, my of my face on the ground or something. I became aware of the room. So I'm in the room now. This probably took like the whole thing, maybe 20 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes. And I'm sitting up. I look at the person. I'm still altered. I see like this like priestess, divine kind of like, I was like feel full of love. I'm like, thank you so much. And then I remember that I did it again. I don't know, you can't really talk, but the idea is that there's a code that if you're still in that window, you can go again. And so I went again. The same thing happened again, all over. But this time I looked on the tape, my shouting, instead of being, the first time was shouting was like a man, like, "Rrr," like shouting for minutes. It's not like shouting a little bit. Second time I did it now was like a baby, was like a baby crying. And then in my experience, it was the same thing, the same torture, the same thing. And there was also this thing like, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't. And then again, pooping, the same thing all over again. First phase, second phase, I come back to her. And this third phase happened each time. The third phase is more like I'm in the room, I'm aware, but I'm still similar as if I'm in a deep, let's say, mushroom journey, like in a powerful mushroom journey. I remember that each time there was some healing, personal something is happening in a way that first time I would sit down, look at her, and I will say to her, is it playing, recording? Yeah, okay. All right, so I had this download of what happened to my mother and what happened with her grandmother and what happened to me, some personal story of, attachment disruption and how somehow there was a big download of knowing what happened to some people in my family and how it impacted me and what's happening. And that's why I was blocking love, not trusting love, and I rejected my mother, and therefore I reject love and reject the whole universe, basically. And so, but it was coming like a gospel, and it was absolutely true. Each time I done the experience, first phase, second phase was the same. The third phase differed. And the third phase, each time for me, I had what's called like attachment trauma, or let's say birth trauma or something like that. I would request, first of all, I would want to be covered in blankets and was recreating this womb. And then I will ask the facilitator to hug me. And then, so I was looking back, it was in a total, let's say, processing trauma and the baby crying. And although I was in the room and conscious, much more conscious of what's happening, there was this unraveling and releasing and experience. And each time was very deeply meaningful. Like even the third phase would count as a very powerful mushroom or MDMA journey. And each time was going for me there. Now, another aspect is that what's interesting is that after about, all of this takes about an hour. And then after some point of sitting, this subsides, I'm sitting, and there's a sense of like, oh, okay. Things become normal again. I start to feel very normal, start to have a little bite to eat. And then I go to my car. I looked, an hour and 10 minutes. I was like, oh my God, it seemed like a lifetime and so intense processing all of this. And what was interesting is as the least hangover from all the medicines that I tried. Besides, I'll go, I'll drive, and then somehow you almost forget this stuff. Forgetting. And however, what happens is that it will come back. It started to come back to me more and more. Then what I've done is that the idea was to play the tape after a few days with headphones in and kind of you see it from the other side. You feel yourself from the other side. Also, there's this element of what's called night school that happens for everybody, is that for a period of about a few days to a week to 2 weeks, there's, as one is sleeping, it activates in the night, and there's like a little bit of flashes of what happened, which are tolerable for me. Other people, they freak out. They were tolerable, and other people, they reported having all kind of adjustments and all of this, and addictions falling off. And the night school, it's almost like what happened there was such a big download, like a Ziploc, gigabytes of thing, and then it couldn't be integrated. So it kind of unpacks now little by little for a few days. Other people have the same 1, 2, 3 phase, but for most people that I've seen, they have a different thing. They are slipping into the source. Let's say they are slipping into that, what for me was the second phase. Some people slip into it right away. For some reason, I'm a little envious of them, and I wish it would be like that. I once went with a dear friend of mine, And I've told her all of these things. She was really worried and concerned. And then she took it, and I would watch her, and she would be like a cat. She would be like, was like, anyway. So some people slip into that, some kind of sense of absolute peace, God experience. They slip into that. And then it's phase one. And then there's phase two. The ego comes back online. And then they have like some deep sadness or anger. They have various things, self-hatred. So it's almost like they slip in effortlessly, or when they come back, they are processing some of the stuff. That's what I witnessed. With most people, it's kind of like that. They slip in effortlessly, and they have all of this pain body comes on the way back.
That's really profound what you shared. So one wonders, I mean, what one can really ask. But I guess one of the things that was coming to me is, I don't know if this resonates with you, but in any kind of meditative experience or psychedelic experience, the deep experiences, the how much of that is kind of remembered or held depends on also on how much energy we can hold.
Yeah.
In some of my own psychedelic experiences, I remember that I feel like I experienced something, but it was not really, and it was profound, but it was not really something that I could bring back.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand what you are alluding to. Yeah. In my case, it's just, I kind of forgot. After I left, I was driving. It's like, I knew there was this sense of some deeply meaningful, life changing insight that happened, and something was deeply meaningful. Yet I forgot. But then it started to come. Started to come, listening to the tape in the night school. It started to come. And then I started to, after weeks and weeks, I started to put words into it, and so somehow what I get is that happened there. That is the truth. Both phases is the truth. I could see after doing it a few times, because I would do it one time and I'll do it another time, and this same thing happens. So I'll have doubts. I will be like, man, why am I doing this? What's the point? What's the lesson here, man? I'm just tortured here and then there. It's like, but then I was like, dude, that's the condensed version of the spiritual path. You're tortured, holding on, and then that's it. What else you want, man?
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, hey, thank you so much for sharing from your heart and your spirit. And I look forward to coming back and trying to digest this more.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So, Mihai, last time when we were talking, you described very elegantly the three phases of the 5-MeO DMT experience. And I think the first one that you described was, it's in my own language, more the resistance phase, and then the entering into the non-dual phase of the God consciousness. And then the third one seems more integration at the relative level. So first of all, maybe I should just check in with you if what I just described seems accurate. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah. And as I said, for most people I have seen the usually it's reversed. If the people slip into the aware peace or our true nature, and then they have this, which was my phase one of resistance, or actually there's a term some teachers use it, I think adida, that's the self-contraction. I think all that I explained last time, this is some self-contraction is flushed into the open and it's contracting hard. And yeah, the third phase of some kind of personal healing, integration, where all traumas coming up and being processed or released or felt and integrated. Yeah.
So that brings an interesting question for me is when you are entering the relative phase from the, let's say, God consciousness, are you experiencing a contraction before the relative integration begins, or the sense of, Mihai appears, or is it rather smooth for you? Because it seems like for some people, you were saying that the contraction phase appears as you come out of God consciousness.
Yeah. For me, So the first two phases, I'm not aware of the room. I'm not aware of my body. And at some point, there starts to be awareness of being face down in with some saliva on my face, or suddenly hearing the music or feeling the blanket. So there is like a fast becoming aware of the room. And I don't experience that self-contraction, but I'm becoming aware of the room. And I guess that the sense of Mihai, me. So it's more like comes in the setting of being Mihai. And then there's some processing of Mihai's wounds or life.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, so the fact that you jumped into this realm of non-duality, our true nature, as you say, quite a few times, as you have been through this each time. Well, first of all, maybe we should take a stab and see what you can say about it. And also, I'll be interested in knowing, has there been any difference as you have entered this multiple times?
In the psychedelic space?
Yes, in the space of the non-dual, or the true nature.
As induced, let's say, forced with the 5-MeO. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, yes, the first time when it happened, it was the strongest and clearest experience of, I don't know, maybe this is maybe Nirvikapa Samadhi or Sahaja Samadhi, I don't know, like a consciousness without objects and consciousness aware of itself. It was definitely, although it passed, there was some sense and conviction that that is the truth. Another impact, and it's not just, oh, what happened? It was strange. No, there was like, oh, wow. Also, there was an increased sense of having verified the teachings that I was applying, and having some of that same experience, but in a less strong way. So it verified the teachings more and confirmed the teachings more. Another impact that it was, I guess, easier, or can connect into that, tune into that right away. Of course, without being so dramatic. It's not so dramatic. Yeah. So I guess it solidified the understanding and made the access to tune into that easier. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what was it, so to speak, when you were in it? Is it describable for you? Are you able to describe it, what it was, that space was like?
Yeah, we can try. That's what all these people do all the time, writing big books about. Although Lao Tzu said that the Tao that can be explained is not the real Tao. So with all this caveat, the quality of that space was of absolute relaxation, effortlessness of being, absolute peace like never before, peace in the mind and peace in the body. And I mean, also there's no thoughts, and the body was temporarily freed from any sense of separation and any struggle and any contraction. And although I wasn't seeing the world, there was no world, there was some knowingness that all is well in the world too. In spite of the wars and atrocious things that are happening, it's almost like the words of Robert Adams would hit me, that all is well, and unfolded as it should. A sense of like shocking simplicity, because you have all these books that are like very complex explanations of what to do and not to do to get there, and they were just utter simplicity, shocking simplicity, which evoked this sense of like laughter, which it seems like it's a It's a universal sense of laughter. I guess seeing that all that that was torturing me, it doesn't exist, and then all is
The
well.
cosmic joke.
Yeah, something like that. Or there's a quality of love, I would say, without object. Contentment, desirelessness. That was, I think that was, I didn't quite connect to that in the teachings before, when the teacher would say about the desireless state. It was like, I guess because I all the time had all these desires all the time, so I didn't have much time to to be in the desireless state. And as I mentioned last time, the sense of unconditionally fulfilled, nothing is missing, nothing is wrong, and not wanting anything, to the point that it was bewildering to be without wants and without. Also, I guess on my life, from early on, I started to seek and to practice. The seeker and practitioner was very strong. And in that space, there was a little bit of bafflement. Well, what do I do with that? That was the there is no need of practice or seeking, because I have arrived. And I guess the emptiness, but I would say, like, I agree with Tony Parson, although he's usually I don't resonate with that fundamental, ultimate, highest level of approach of the he in Buddhism, I think it's shunyata or something, emptiness, but he will call it the emptifulness. I was like, yeah, it was empty, but it was full of fulfillment, peace, love, and I guess deeply impersonal. I guess it was the revelation of what they call there of the background, or the tulia, don't you think? I mean, from what I'm telling you, it seems like that. The ultimate state, the background.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen this very often, I guess, but I understand the empty fullness. I think I had a contact with that state, and there was happiness and fullness, no sense of lack, and there was no reason for that, which was the bewildering part. I would like to ask you, you mentioned the word love, and this is something that I've been checking in with myself, this quality of love. And on the path, I'm feeling that, earlier we have these images of love, perhaps for most of us, with our mother could be a very close bond of love. And as over time that has been refined, it seems like on the path, there is an empty quality to that love that is emerging, where sometimes I can feel intimacy. It could be with a spiritual teacher or a friend. But when I investigate it, has different intensities. And sometimes I can sense a sense of emptiness, that there's nothing personal about this love. Yet, if I had to do kind of like a meditation and invoke a sense of love, I still have to use some kind of a memory, or bring up, the image of someone or some situation that was very tender, and then expand it, marinate in that. But question I want to present to you, because you mentioned this, you used the word impersonal love. For me, I'm still not able to make a direct jump to that. I still have to use, so to speak, an object to have that state. Anyways, that's an exercise that I've been recently doing. Can I get to it in an impersonal way? I was wondering if you had some comments or clarity.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I can bring up the image of my grandmother, and if I just let the image be there for a bit, there is a sense of love, or my partner, that has phenomena in it too. It's a little yummy, and a little, some yumminess of the texture. I did experience in various states of meditation this more, still with yumminess, strong yumminess. I guess this would be more like a little bit of ecstasy or bliss, and there was not directing towards anything. was just a good, but I don't have that a lot. And it was more like earlier on a spiritual path. I guess I resonated a lot. What helped me a lot, and I verified, is when David Hawkins was talking about love. He was saying that at some level that is beyond the mind, and it's not love as a feeling. It's more like lovingness as a energetic attitudinal stance to life. Also is called as benevolence, having goodwill and benevolence towards all life, including oneself and the cats and the dogs, and some lovingness, but that not necessarily that's a feeling. That's more like when a consciousness, I guess, gets more purified from various lower energy field and lower emotions, then consciousness, the presence is naturally in this kind of lovingness setting. And he was saying that as one gets deeper, then this becomes unconditional. So although there's, let's say, some leader in the world that does some really bad stuff, hurting humanity, I can be angry and I want to take him down, but also it's a sense of, I don't hate the guy, you know. It's uh, yeah, some lovingness even towards that. Yeah. Or another way would be kindness, some kindness, kind. So I noticed that this happening. It's not dramatic. I appreciate that. It's that's what I can say. I mean, Hawkins was both non-dual and progressive. I mean, it was a direct path. It was progressive, and he was saying that try to cultivate that. Try to cultivate that, and whenever something you can't, look into that. See what that is. You will find some lower energy field, some positionality, some being right, some being a victim, some whatever being better. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thank you for that. Actually, I remember in one of the meditative experiences a while back, there was this recognition that I am love.
Yeah.
And but bringing that is a little bit of a struggle in more the relative space. So what you just said
Yeah.
is helpful. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. I also had this in when I in MDMA quite some time ago, and at that time I was a little bit love to me didn't. I had resistance towards that, so I very much witnessing and consciousness and Vishnani, the higher reasoning and consciousness, witnessing. It didn't connect that what's love about. And in this MDMA journey, I had this revelation that, well, I said, I love you, all mean the same thing. It was like on a platter, like a revelation that love and consciousness are one and the same. It's a holographic thing, depends how you look into it. So there was an insight and a feeling, then it went away, but somehow it stayed. And I guess as I got more free from pain body, I think this happened spontaneously more and more. I'm not so big fan of cultivating virtues now and stuff. Cultivating, be more loving, be more forgiving. I'm not so fan of that because I think the ego is the trying to be loving or to be forgiving. As Francis would say, it's you have a pig and you try to inflate the pig and put some lipstick and it's nice, but it's still a pig.
Yeah. Yeah. The way I'm approaching is perhaps more like a tantric approach in which, like, when you play music, you have different notes and to you practice like clarifying the note and projecting the note. And that way something shifts. It's a less of a mental activity. So anyways, yeah. Another question I had for you was what kind of insights you have had, if any, entering into this non-dual space, the space of God consciousness, and coming back to the relative level. We have talked a little bit about this before, but maybe we can take another go. And I would say, okay, so you come back here and it seems like you still value this life, because there are entire traditions sometimes, or interpretations of certain traditions where, this place is not such a good place, and the best we can do is to get out of here. And even in the concept of referring to Buddhism, there is the idea of the Bodhisatva versus the Arahant. And the Arahant is the one who realizes and doesn't care and leaves. And the Bodhisattva is kind of the opposite of that, where he also wants everybody else to transcend. But the problem is, even with the Bodhisattva, is that there is this inherent pessimism about the world, that I have to help everybody else to get out because this is not a place worth being at. So do you have any comments or any downloads you had about this paradox of transcendence and immanence?
Yeah. I think for a lot of my path, I was unconsciously uncomfortable with the world and felt maybe unconsciously not capable or not interested. And I guess, yeah, some kind of disempowered thing, but also lack of interest. It seemed like I was focusing on spiritual realms. So there was a hunger and pursuit of transcendence, with the idea that if I do all these practices, then I will transcend and I will be in a very yummy, perfect state forever. So I see now that I don't resonate with this anymore, and it seems like that for me, the more of this verification of being the awareness, and more verification of non-separate of the oneness of the soup of the creation, and we are a pea in it. And I have less interest in transcendence. And actually, I've verified how my transcendence arch was also, I was avoiding painful feelings, and I was avoiding unpleasantness in the body. So I was avoiding my pain body, trying to transcend it or stabilize it. And then it caught up with me. It just caught up with me, because you can't inflate the fig for too much, because then it pops. So I was forced to go less into going towards ultimate identity, and put this on break for a while, and go into the mud, go into the loneliness, the sense of separation, the abandonment, the fear, the grief, the repression of grief, the shame, the out of integrity, inauthenticity, procrastination, laziness, holding back. So to somehow, I guess, this post-awakening sadhana, or some practice to live fully, and to be the highest, most free expression of this pea. I mean, the pea in the soup, to free Mihai from all of these things, so that Mihai can be fully embodied and integrated and fully functioning optimally and enthusiastically at the level of job, at the level of friends, at the level of relationship, money, not avoiding and transcending. So I'm in this phase now, and it's not that the transcendental is forgotten. I can see that I was bypassing, and I think that the more these personal aspects are taken care of, then there's more and more, quiet mind and enthusiasm, and talent and creativity, spontaneity. So I'm interested in that now, and all aspects of my life, relationships were always back. Difficulties in relationship and difficulties, patterns of stuff. So I'm waging this war now.
Yeah, no, that's very insightful and poetic the way you described it. I resonate with that because I also strongly feel that I find myself in the same phase. Um, and I have a feeling that as a culture, as a civilization, I find that we have this resurgence of the more emphasis on the embodiment and putting less weight on the transcendent. It almost feels like we went through the phase of emphasizing the transcendent for a while, maybe for good reason, and now we're trying to integrate it more here.
As for what you said with the Arahant and the Bodhisattva, I think this our preferences are influenced by our subconscious and our childhood experiences. I don't have a strong agenda to save the world at all, or yeah, and also I don't have a strong agenda to not give a shit either. It happens naturally that what I do in the world is helpful, and it deals with suffering and things like that. And I do it. I was doing it spontaneously because I enjoyed it, not because I had this agenda to help the world. So I don't know. That's my take. So it's just, yeah, I'm engaging spontaneously in something that helps the world, but I'm not trying to do it in order to help the world. Doing it because it's the most fun thing and the most fun, best use of Mihai.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I in a way I agree with you. When I was mentioning the Arahant and Bodhisattva, what is interesting is I was highlighting that both of them have a pessimism about the world. It seems like they're taking opposite position, but actually their positions are not that opposite, because the Arahant is saying this place isn't worth staying here, so I'm out of here. And the Bodhisattva says, I agree with the Arahant, but I got to get everybody out. Inherently, both of them are kind of pessimists. But coming back to what you just said, and as you were sharing earlier, you mentioned so many qualities of embodiment, or things that you would want to get rid of or clear them away so you could be more fully expressed, whether it's laziness, procrastination, and you mentioned like a dozen things. I feel the same way. And I feel like even the intention to help can be one of not so much of a heavy activism, because anything that we do creatively is usually beautiful and can enhance the well-being of ourselves and others. And it seems to require hard work, and sometimes it can be painful in a different way, not in an existential way. And you don't know what the outcome would be. I feel like our life becomes more a creative process, and in most creative processes, the outcome is usually unknown. You're trying to give birth to something, but you're not very clear about what will come forth.
I haven't, whatever I have, let's say, achieved in the world, or this track that I am happy with, I didn't plan it. But there was this, I could see that this, is what Whitman says, what you are picks its way. So the deepest interest, if it is attended to, and if we are earnest, this creek becomes a river and becomes unstoppable. So it just happened. Yeah.
Very beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I love that analogy.
Yeah. I want to say this about the five. I could see that after the first experience, there was some longing to have that again. There was like the Shangri-La archetypal metaphor, that once we got there, then I'm totally hooked. So I wanted to have that again. I wanted to have that again, the non-dual, what I described. And I would go after a few months, and it didn't happen. It was like the non-dual didn't happen. It was just torture and healing. And then I would go again, and there was like, and then I was disappointed, and then I was questioning, and then I was questioning what's happening, and I was questioning then, I want to get this special ultimate divine heroin into my nervous system. But then I was okay that it didn't happen. I was like, man, you got it. That's it. So I guess now what it shares to me, it brings up all my pain and self-contraction. So that's good. Let's do it.
Yeah, very nice. Actually, that reminds me of, in Kashmir Shaivism, they say that the full mastery, so to speak, of the divine play is to be able to go in both directions, that you can rise to the transcendent Shiva, but that also you can enter back in. And anyways, I don't know if that is a process of the refinement of our spiritual path, because they say that is full freedom, that one can rightly ride both ways, go up and down. I wanted to ask you in this, you were just saying that you returned and it seems like you went back to use the medicine a few times. And I know that you had mentioned this in the past, that although it was a torturous experience, the transition into the non-dual God consciousness space, but there was integration that you valued. And at a very intuitive level, you knew that this was good for you and for the world to do this work. I was wondering if there was more you had to say. If not, that's okay. But if you had any insight as to why you would want to return to this particular medicine, so to speak, which is very intense.
Yeah. I mean, I would, even in the one session, sometimes there can be several partakings, and I would come back into the room with the awareness that, oh my God, there is so much pain in there. I don't even know whose it is. It's mine. It's my ancestors. There's so much pain and so much. And there was the understanding that it's not finished. What I have processed, that's not finished. And then so there was the understanding that I need to go back, although it was the last thing I want to feel that again. So I guess the spiritual warrior that is not pursuing what's pleasant, but is pursuing the truth. So I guess I'm grateful for that energy. Yeah, it was not so much to go back to. This is in one session. I will do it again in order. There was this. It's not finished, and I'm so afraid, and I don't want to do it, but I have to do it for the good of all. And yeah,
Excellent. I mean, I know that this is kind of indescribable in many ways, and thank you for taking a crack at that. And I think what you're also expressing is a deep feeling that there is pain there is stuff there that needs to be addressed. And as you were saying, the warrior archetype, it takes us back, even as the mind fights. You come back to the battle for another day. So I wanted to ask you if there was other insights that were like any gifts that you got that might not be directly related to, let's say, the spiritual quest for freedom, but might just be like an insight about the universe or something else. Does that resonate with you in some way?
Some other insights that I haven't mentioned coming from those experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that this thing that Cartola calls pain body is not theoretical. It's not abstract. Is a visceral. So I verified that, and I verified that is in me. I mean, I knew that, but and I could verify that that's also, it was the pain that was coming, and the torture was a little bit seemingly not personal. I couldn't relate in my life, or it wasn't me, but I could see the lineage, the ancestors of men struggling, feeling separate, and there's no God, trying to survive and try to hold on and to be strong. I could understand that is in everybody. That is in everybody, and all my clients, no matter what issue they have, they are sitting on all of that. And so that helped me be actually a better therapist in a way that I felt more comfortable when the client was about to go into some disturbing space, where before I would be like, whoa, I don't know, maybe it's not safe. Let me regulate him back. Maybe it's too much. Now I would see the client going into some space where there was no more repression. It was just pure, intense feeling and some torture. I would be like, yeah, go, yes. So I was like, whoa, okay. I felt more comfortable with that. More the insight that I don't know about the universe, but that I can do. I can just, there's no rules that I have to be in a certain way, to live my life in a certain way, to, yeah, I think part of my seeker and practitioner, in order to build this identity, this is built on learning spiritual principles and guidelines and techniques and how it should be and how it shouldn't be. There was more of a sense that, yeah, okay, that's helpful as a, this is just freedom. It's, there's no way that, there's no recipe how to be. I guess the all is well. Oh, or the all is well unfolding as it should. This is about the universe and the seeming terrible things that are happening. Somehow I think many people, they are seeing just the world as it is, and that seems fucked up. And it seems it is fucked up. What's happening politically, socially, economically, medically, financially, like climate, ecologically, it's fucked up. But there was also the understanding that yeah, like the actual is not the real world, and at some deeper level is fine and it's safe. And you asked me to say something about, oh, there's no recipe how to be.
Yeah, because you spoke of the freedom. I mean, you said a lot, and I think we could go into it if you like, but maybe that's for another time. I resonate with all of that what you said. Maybe you could say a little bit about the simplicity, because you used the word freedom, that there is no recipe. Should be. I understand it. I think.
Yeah, how to be. I don't know. I think many people have this. First of all, recipes from childhood, that how I need to be, I need to be like this. I shouldn't show this emotion. I should work hard. I should, some kind of mandate. How is the right way to be from the parents? Then we free ourselves from that a little bit, although subconsciously may still be there. Then I get some other programs, the spiritual programs, and how I should be as a spiritual aspirant. That was helpful. But so yeah, that was seen that it's, there's no recipe how to be Mihai from the mind like this. Oh, I should do this and all that. There was just like anything is possible. There's no right way to go. Yeah, and because actually there's the simplicity of the effortless desirelessness, and the nothing is missing. It was so overwhelmingly baffling and shocking, to the point that I think my mind came, what so now what? Now what do I do? What do I do now if I don't want enlightenment anymore, and I don't want relationship and love? Then what am I doing here? And it was like, bro, just live your life, man. Do whatever you want. Yeah.
That's very, very beautiful. Yeah, maybe we can dig into this a little bit. So one thing that it seems to me also from hearing your experience is that the transcendent aspect, the aspect of God consciousness, infuses the eminence aspect, the aspect of embodiment. So both of them are like like a package deal. You cannot separate one from the other. So once you get connected to the source, the higher self, whatever have you, then perhaps what you're saying is that this life becomes an effortless creative process and an act of creativity. Does that align with you?
Yes, lands with me. And also catching up with all these abandoned aspects of ourselves. Maybe some of us have that abandoned the world and abandoned career and abandoned, how to and also growing, not like growing in how to have in love, in more ease, in more authenticity, in spontaneity, in some mastery, I guess, some mastery of the illusory world, and playing with it in a creative way. Yeah.
And I feel another aspect of that, and I just want to check with you if you resonate with this, is in this creative process, at least where I find myself, there's also an act of commitment. So let's say I want to work on a project or a creative expression, then that connection with the divine actually provides me with the fuel to keep going, because something, at least in my experience, something doesn't happen, you know, just like that in a moment. So it requires a certain level of trust to make certain kinds of decisions that are in alignment with you, all
Yeah.
the while not knowing if what you're engaged in will succeed in a certain way, but you keep going anyways. So the
Yeah.
courage and dedication, commitment, and all those qualities seem to be present in connection with this truth.
Yeah. A long time ago, I was, although I wasn't necessarily mystical or religious inclined, I found this prayer from some saint saying that, and I took it. I was like, wow, that's cool. I like that. It's a long time ago, and said that God, make me an instrument of your peace, make me an instrument of your love and your knowledge. So I would say this, but I didn't get it. But I guess that there was some resonance with that. That's a powerful statement. So I think now the work in the world can be that the natural expression in the world is being an instrument of the source, and whatever talents, one can be a therapist, one is a painter, one is the drummer from Tool. It's God to me. So that's good work, like podcast, you know. Now I think I don't resonate with this courage, commitment, and something else you said, courage, commitment, and dedication. I mean, I resonate intellectually, but I don't feel like what I'm doing, what's happening now, is because I have courage, commitment, and dedication, or hey, man, I should be courageous. Or I think this is happening. I think because of the interest, the love of truth, and the love of psychotherapy, the love of processing. I just love it. It's interesting. I'm into it. You know, I think what we need to undo is that some of this procrastination or fear of our destiny, procrastination, laziness, and all that, these are connected to unprocessed childhood stuff and whatever, some programs, fear of failure, fear of being successful, fear of being seen. What if I do this and I prove that I'm not good enough? So this procrastination and holding back is connected to deficiency story identities and then the repression of self, of the personal self. So I'll go more like to process that rather than cultivate more dedication.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I just got reminded of a friend shared with me a quote from the spiritual teacher and therapist, Thomas Hugo.
Yeah.
And he said that trauma is frozen potential.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
Just what you just said in a different way. And what I meant with commitment and dedication is actually two things that came to me is, one is on the path. Maybe that is where I'm at right now, is where the understanding is maybe not fully there. I can't seem to return to the transcendent realms just by closing my eyes yet. Maybe that's why we return to medicine, for example. I mean, if you could directly,
Yeah.
be no point of having tools and techniques. So then I have to be true to my understanding. And I think to be true to your understanding in face of hardships in life or temptations of, you know, you know, oh yeah, I don't make enough money. I really know this is where my heart is. I'm getting a job that pays higher, so let me negotiate. So I think that's where that commitment and dedication can come. But I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
not too sure that there can be a level of our maturity where anyways the warrior goes to war even when he knows that his head is gonna get chopped off.
Yeah.
Because
No,
that's not enough.
I actually I think that this the focus, dedication, one pointedness of mind, valuation for what matters. These are good. I would recommend this somebody at beginning on the path, because the interest in awakening or healing, it's one part of us, and we have many other parts of us at the beginning interested in other things. And as long as this is the status quo, we're not going to go very far. So I guess we have to have some ingredient to value this spiritual impulse and evolutionary impulse. And this grows and grows and grows until naturally it becomes more important than anything else. And then it's like almost like a permanent tendency to evolve, has a momentum, it's unstoppable. But in the earlier stages, I would recommend people to, hey man, just stay committed to your practice, do this, do that. At the same time, I think that we don't have a choice around that. Some people have that, some people don't. So I think also it's totally okay. I mean, to be focused on what we love, and then this doesn't make money. And so I'm getting. I had a lot of my life jobs that I didn't like, and it was good to get a job that I don't like, to learn various things while still pursuing what I loved. And so I needed to master more this world of bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, not to hammer this point too much. I think in a way I agree with you, but another word that you used was authenticity, and authenticity could be like a synonym for self-honesty,
Mhm.
right? I think that's a very useful tool when we look in the mirror as spiritual seekers to call our own bullshit, because at times, even spiritual teachers, spiritual leaders fall from the path. There's abuse of power, or, you know, you name it, it's full. At the same time, in the grand scheme of things, as you were saying, in the cosmic play, maybe this is, of course, this is all part of it and it's okay. But at the same level, it seems to me that there are these levels of purification, and to neglect them is maybe not the best thing at times. To say, okay, anything goes now. I'm always myself. I mean, there are versions of that, but you can even see that in when
Yeah,
someone like a spiritual teacher who is transcended falls out of integrity.
yeah, I totally. In more traditional spirituality, before going to transcendence, there was some ethics, you know. And I myself, I was at fault for this because I would go for deep stuff while having aspects of my life out of integrity. And so then it catches up with me, So the necessity to be in integrity and to be who says I am, and to be honest and not to lie. And that's some basic stuff, but it can be very advanced. Hey, I want to say something here because you said something recently and it caught my eye. You said, well, I'm not there now that I can close my eyes and access transcendental states or identity. And I don't know, maybe it's a phase, but I have no desire for that now. I have more desire to be able to feel everything, to feel my feelings fully. I'm very interested to feel these things like I'm sad, I'm lonely, to be like, I'm sad, man. Yeah, I want to feel this. I want to feel this rather than, there's sadness in this, in me, and I'm the source. I want to feel, I want to feel everything. And it's hard, man. And so I'm more on this page with this, Paul Hederman, that, hey, this is dog shit awareness, man. It's not like fancy, mystical thing. And the result, you traveling lighter in this life, traveling lighter.
Yeah,
Maybe
no,
I'll
thank
get
you.
better. I'll get better into transcendent states. I'm old or something. I'll go on a mountain, or I'm open to it. But I think this, I'm correcting. I guess I'm correcting, bypassing a lot of
No,
feelings.
that's beautiful. Yeah, thank you for bringing it to the context. And what I would say is, actually, for me, maybe we're just using different language. I feel that the desire there's a sadness to seeing the pain, and also knowing some of these deeper truths that we're talking about, wanting to connect with that so I can be more creative. And what is interesting is that the more intense that sadness or longing for me is, which fluctuates throughout the day or throughout the week, that takes me, or takes the subconscious, brings like a lot of feeling to the surface. So I consider it a good thing. So it's very interesting for me that not transcendence to escape, but wanting to connect with my true nature, the intensity of that seems to modulate the garbage that comes up. It brings it up as like, why don't you eat this first?
Yeah. This, I don't, in New Age circles and psychology, they talk about self-love. I think there are different levels of self-love. I think just by experiencing what we truly are, that brings some higher level of self-love, that we are love, and what we are is perfect. And there's a lower level of self-love which can be helpful. I don't know who said it. I picked it up from somewhere, like self-love is to being kind to yourself in spite of shortcomings and fuck ups. Being kind towards oneself in spite of shortcomings, have fuck ups, instead of meditating more on watching movies, smoking weed, eating some chocolate. Okay, to not be so harsh on ourselves,
Yes. Yeah, no, this is great. I think we covered a lot of ground and a lot of different topics. Maybe another topic that we can quickly touch on, which is cosmic exploration. And let me quickly draw a quick picture of what I mean, and then I can check with you what your thoughts are on
Yeah.
that. I heard this interview by this gentleman, David Bosch. I shared that with you earlier, who's a professor who did 20 years of LSD while having a very strong tantric practices while he was a professor of philosophy. And one of the themes he says is that at some point in his journey, it became more than or beyond the journey for enlightenment. He didn't really care about that so much. But what he was being shown was like an astronaut exploring the cosmos, because he said there's much more than the human desire for transcending or not transcending. And from my study of Kashmir Shaivism, one of the things that's kind of similar is what I've seen is that they have this whole landscape of awareness or geography of awareness, but at the same time, they also have this mystical map of what they call the 118 worlds. They say, well, there are all these universes and worlds, but not that it's a fixed number. They're like, creation is infinite, and that's what we have been able to catalog, so to speak. Well, not everybody has cataloged, but some of the apostles of Kashmir Shaivism, in this case, Abhinavagupta, who was a master who wrote many of the important texts. But anyways, yeah, I wonder if in your psychedelic transmissions or downloads with 5-MeO or others, if you had any encounters with things that had not much to perhaps do with the journey of the seeker.
Yeah. Not so much. I would like that. It sounds very interesting. Actually, I remember I was once working with, teenagers at risk, and I was trying to make groups that were fun for them. So I will ask this question: if you had a superpower, anything, what would you like? And I asked them, and then I asked myself, and I think my superpower that I would have liked is which is along the lines of what you are saying too. I would like to be able to travel back and forth in space and time anywhere. And so to explore, to see the space and time and dimension. So I think that's very interesting, and to know what's really going on, what's the nature of God, what's happened. I would like that. I guess in my journeys it didn't happen so much. I think that because that's not urgent. And I had shit, man, pain body, my life from my dad, from things, and my spiritual practice that I've done was trying to transcend and bypass. And when I got to psychedelic journeys, was put my it will not go transcendence a little bit, but it will help me to go back to my what I put in the shadow in the vaults. But I would imagine that if that gets more clearer, that there's less ballast holding you down. So one will naturally perhaps explore that if it's in one's cards.
Yeah, no, it seems very insightful what you said, or some kind of an intuition, because both in like traditional, like Kashmir Shaivism, and also from Chris Bosch, what he was sharing, it seems like it was at a certain kind of ripeness where a lot of the stuff had been, so to speak, dealt with, where that exploration was fun. If you have a lot of trauma and stuff, then as you perhaps said,
Yeah.
that is more urgent to deal with.
I
So
did have a friend. I remember she was a little older than me, and she was more advanced with this stuff. I didn't even know what embodiment meant at that time, and she was very Hakomi practitioner and doing psychedelics. And I did once a journey together as peers, and I was having all of this, oh, and she was like, she was cool, and she said this. It's interesting that I have less material now. I have less material coming up in journeys. And I was like, well, okay, good for you. I have a lot. So I could see that. Maybe in 10 years we can talk again.
have
5 years.
another episode. Yeah. Maybe this brings to a question I had, which seemed kind of important, and we can close after that, is one of the themes that I'm seeing both with the spiritual journey in myself and reading and talking to other seekers and friends is that there is a certain kind of ripeness that happens with the our the way we question and the way we try to describe our experience, like the integration aspect. And as our trauma clears away and there is more integration, we seem to have more and more paradoxes, which are things that necessarily don't need to be resolved on the journey, but it becomes more poetic. Then the universe or reality, God, can offer you things that you were not ready to assimilate. Perhaps another analogy is vibration. Now you can hold higher vibration. So maybe I can check with you, because even in my own experience of psychedelics, I noticed that sometimes I was catapulted in another realm, or certain kind of mantras or symbols like magical dimensions, but I wasn't really able to bring doubt. Some of it I brought, but a lot of that I didn't really understand. And in the shamanic tradition, you see that this is part of their training to be able to hold what they're shown. I was wondering if there is some aspect of that experience in your journey.
I witnessed that people derive more or less benefit from the same journey, from the same medicine, depending on where they're at. And where they're at is depending on their level of spiritual maturity, their level of having a practice that is useful. And I think I mentioned before when we talked, one of my early teachers that I never met but influenced my life, Gurdjieff. He was, although in the fourth way they were not using medicines or psychedelics, he was saying that in some schools, the traditions were that will be a shortcut and will crack the veil of illusion, and then that will be used intentionally. But if it's too much gap between the level of being asleep and the level of the heightened in the deep state of the journey, then if it's too much gap, then it's almost going to be like nothing happened. It's like amnesia or some trippy experience, then it's gone and one doesn't retain much. But the more one has this element of self remembering or self investigation or self abiding, the more one will retain. So this makes sense to me.
Yeah. No, excellent. That's a great.
And I could see I'd done some journeys, ayahuasca 15 years ago, and they were pretty random. Looking back, they were very symbolical and meaningful. But I remember that even one time I got this download saying to me, and I was 30 something. It said to me, I wrote it down. I was like, there are no others. And I was like, okay, what? It didn't make sense to me. There are no others. But I knew that's deep and true, but it didn't make any sense. But it came, I guess. Now when I do ayahuasca, it's more, I feel like I'm surfing the waves there. I can stay on the plank. I'm getting more than at the beginning.
Excellent. Well, hey, Mihai, thank you so much for bringing the 5-MeO DMT to us down here on the earthly realm.
Yeah, thanks for all the deep questions. And also, you go on YouTube and you look at, Tony Robbins' experience of 5-MeO DMT, it's different. Mike Tyson experience of 5-MeO DMT is different. So it's good people to check it out. And be
Yeah,
careful
totally.
who you are doing it with. I remember, remind yourself that, if they're convincing you, if they have a strong agenda, that's not good. Shouldn't be pushed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything else that you think we might have missed?
Nothing comes to mind. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Mihai, once again.